Know what to eat, but find yourself not eating it. Perhaps you've been on diets and off again and just wonder why you can't stick to them. The Eating For You podcast, hosted by me, Sally Ann Pisk, will show you what's been missing so you can enjoy a healthier way of eating that lasts. Hi, Sally Ann with you today, and it's my great pleasure to welcome back Tania Grasseschi. Tania is a Chinese medicine practitioner based in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney. She's also a Qigong teacher who has just returned from China from an immersive learning experience. Welcome back, Tania.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back.
Yes, it's interesting how time flies. It's not that long ago we recorded the spring episode. So I'm really excited to get into summer because I know there's a lot of misconceptions in the West about how we regulate heat in summer. So I'm really excited to explore these with you today. So when it comes to summer, what are the main sort of principles from a Chinese medicine perspective?
In Chinese medicine, summer, of course, is the most yang time of the year. So it's the most warming, the most drying, the most active season. It relates to the fire element because of this fiery nature of the warmth. And the fire element also corresponds to the heart energy and to the small intestine energy, as well as the heart protector and the sanjiao in terms of meridians. So because it is so hot and so drying, it's really important that we stay cool and hydrated. So working with these concepts without putting out our digestive fire is really important.
Yes, and I know I sort of asked you about that, and I'm going to jump in right now because I think it's a great example. So many people in summer want to have cool drinks, they want to have the ice cream, they want to have lots of cold salads, but that is a sure way to actually put out that digestive fire and make digestion much more difficult, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
So there are plenty of ways to cool down without turning to the ice and without damaging the digestion.
Yes, and I must admit, when I was first introduced to Chinese medicine many years ago, this whole concept of not drinking really cold drinks in summer was really kind of a hard habit to break. And it wasn't till I moved to New Zealand and we were on the South Island, so summer may last for a day or two and then be gone again, and then you have to wait another week for a hot day. It actually flipped. The whole idea of drinking something cold out of the refrigerator was repulsive. And that's really when I broke the habit of drinking really cold drinks. I prefer things sort of like water, for example, straight from the tap, or other drinks at room temperature. So tell me a little bit more about the foods that are recommended, or is it also a little bit how we spoke in spring about how we prepare the food as well?
Whatever season we're in, if we're eating seasonally, we're generally eating the foods that will support that season. So in summertime, you're going to have all those lovely juicy fruits. You're going to have the watermelons and the honeydew melons. You're going to have your mangoes and your peaches and your plums. They're so hydrating.
Yes.
And we will be tempted to, or not tempted to, we will tend to cook more lightly.
Yes.
So in the wintertime, we've got our soups and stews and casseroles, our heavy meals. But in the summertime, if you're lightly steaming your veggies, they're still lovely and crunchy and fresh. If you do a quick stir fry, it's a really quick way of cooking things so that things are still crunchy and fresh. So eating lightly, eating refreshing foods within that season is the best way to go, no matter what season you're in.
When you mentioned eating lightly, the thing that sort of popped into my head also was the quantity of food that we eat. And when I really started embracing that mindful approach to eating, that's when it really hit me. We don't eat to a meal plan. We eat through those natural signals that we're getting from the body, but also in our environment changes what we want to eat. And we often eat more lightly, but we eat less also in the warmer weather. And is this sort of explained in Chinese medicine at all, Tania?
It is that natural instinct of when it's that hot, I don't want to eat a big, heavy meal. I do just want to eat a lighter meal and not eat quite so heavily.
I suppose it really is. If we talk about eating with the seasons in many ways, from me, from a practical point of view, and as I said, also that mindfulness point of view, it kind of explains it. We do want to have that food that makes us feel more satisfied and warmer in winter versus having something in the summer that sustains us still, but doesn't have that heaviness or that heat around it.
Far more active in the summer. So I think the last thing anyone wants to do is go out and play sports on a full stomach.
Yeah.
So being more active, being outdoors more, getting out and doing things more supports that tendency of eating a bit more lightly,
Yeah,
but nourishingly because you need the energy to do what you're doing.
that's right.
So eating more nutrient dense foods is going to be far more supportive. And those nutrient dense foods tend to be the foods we have to cook, even if we've just cooked them really lightly.
Yes, yes, yes. I think from a scientific point of view, and I was reflecting on this morning before our conversation, there is what we call that thermogenic effect of food as well. And there are some limited studies showing people who move from a warm climate to a cold climate and vice versa, and the change in our metabolism and the change in our body weight. And a personal experience of mine was certainly when I moved from Sydney to Dunedin in New Zealand. And a couple of things have to happen when we're going to a colder climate. We have to dress more appropriately with the layers, which took a little bit of learning, because I can just remember I just dropped about 3 kilos in the first month because I just wasn't warm enough. So there's that impact as well. It's only subtle, it's not big from the research that I have read, but that's probably playing a part as well, guiding us in terms of how much we have to eat with the different climates that we're in as well.
Food in Chinese medicine described as being heating, warming, neutral, cooling, and cold. So just as you say, in the wintertime we need to put more layers on.
Mm.
So in the wintertime we need to eat those foods that are more warming.
Yes,
And in the summertime we eat those foods that are more cooling.
yes,
But when you go to the foods that are hot or the foods that are very cold, those ones tend to be used medicinally.
yes,
So, in order to treat something, you
yeah,
would use those hot or cold foods. But in order to maintain good health, stick more to the neutral foods and the slightly warming, slightly cooling foods. Then we're not going to throw our bodies out of balance.
yes,
Or else we're constantly going, I've just had something really, really cold. Oh God, now I'm really cold. I need something really, really hot. And then I need something about, and you're always on this seesaw process rather than
yes.
just staying in that sort of center lane.
Yes, yes. And I think this is where in the West we sort of overcomplicated eating, and as much as it can be interesting for people to watch these cooking competitions on TV, we don't really want complicated foods, or our body certainly doesn't. Our taste buds
We
might
don't
lead
have
us to lead
time.
us that too, but our bodies don't need that to feel well, and we don't need that to feel satisfied. And the more I reflect on my own approach to eating, it's about simple, nourishing foods. Sure, I love trying new flavors and I love my herbs and spices, but that's what my body does well on. That's how I feel well, is by eating those simple, nourishing, whole foods. So, what would your sort of key recommendations be, the starting point for summertime eating? I know we've touched on a couple, and it's about eating nourishing foods in general and being careful of those really cold foods because of their impact on digestion. What else is really important about summertime eating?
The flavor associated with summer foods is bitter.
Mm,
So the bitter foods help to clear a lot of the heat out of the body. So having some radicchio, having some rocket, even dandelion tea, which is quite bitter, is but quite cooling to the body. So aiming for those bitter foods is a great thing to do in summertime, as well as really hydrating foods.
yes. And
And of course, always as much as you can. And I like to follow the 80-20 rule. So if 80% of the time I'm doing the right thing, 20% of the time I can have a
Compensate.
treat.
You can have what you want, and you'll be able to compensate, or your body will be able to help you compensate.
So if it's 40 degrees outside, then yes, I might have a salad for lunch, and it might be a lettuce, cucumber, tomato salad, or even a lovely cucumber seaweed salad. But I will probably also have a nice cup of warm tea with that. Or I'll know that the next day when it's not 40 degrees, I can go back to eating sort of those more balanced, neutral types of flavors and natures of temperature.
One of my first learning experiences about how the body regulates heat was when I first had a visit to a tropical island in North Queensland. And I was out with friends playing tennis. And I got to the stage where my body was just sweating. And normally I'd think, oh, don't like the feeling of this. But it was perfect because there was just a little bit of breeze coming off the ocean, quite a still day. But that breeze touched the sweat on my skin and it was just so refreshing. It was better than air conditioning. And later, while visiting Sri Lanka, we were noticing the local people eating chilies in this really, really hot, like 38, 40-degree weather. So let's perhaps explore this a little bit, Tania, because I know you have sort of interest and expertise in this area as well in terms of releasing that heat.
So there's two aspects to that. One is when we're really, really hot in the summertime, we need to focus on not feeding that fire. Yeah. So not having the ginger and the garlic and the chives and all of those, too much alcohol, which is heating, too much caffeine, which is heating, all of those things add heat to the body.
Mm.
However, having just come back from China, I've acquired a whole new appreciation for chili because, yes, chili does help you to sweat and clear a lot of the heat out of the body.
Mm.
So when you think about curries and chilies and things like that, there are many different spices that go into a curry.
Mm.
And for example, in North India, the spices that would go into a curry would be far more warming spices because it's so cold when you're thinking about the Himalayas, the Nepal, the northern region. But in the south of India, or even in the south of China, there will be spices and herbs that are used that are actually about releasing that they've got that expansive energy of summer because summer is so expanding. So adding those chilies in there to allow us to sweat, to allow us to cool down, it's counterintuitive, but it's actually the best way to go. You
Yes.
don't go to Indonesia and Thailand and eat cold salads and icy smoothies.
Mm.
Everything they serve is cooked. And I must admit, my digestion fared the best it's ever been for the 2 weeks I was in China because always a nice cup of tea with a meal, never an icy drink,
No.
and always warm cooked food.
And I think also in my own reflection on Eastern medicine, it's a really lovely example of what is sort of called those post-digestive impacts of food and how they impact our mind and body. As you said, one particular spice can help us keep warm, keep the body warm, and take warmth into our core where we need it. And then something like chili can actually help us release that excess heat. Something that we were talking about before I started recording was that idea of what heat is. And Tania, I think it might be a good time to sort of explain that to our listeners, what we're talking about. We're not just talking about physical heat of the body, are we? We're talking about potentially inflammation and chronic inflammation.
Yes, there are different levels of heat. There's the nourishing heat
Yeah.
where I'm cold, I need to warm up. And then there's that inflammatory heat, which just makes us feel so uncomfortable.
Mm.
And generally speaking, that inflammatory heat is coming from the highly processed foods we're eating, too much alcohol, too much caffeine, too much bread, too much pasta, too much cakes, all of those foods that will add to inflammation, as well as stress. Stress is a huge contributor to inflammation, as well as our passive lifestyle. So, not actually getting out and moving. The energy becomes stagnant and can create inflammation. So, this is why self care has to be multifaceted. It's not just about what we eat. However, what we eat is at the center, but it's also about what we feed ourselves intellectually, what we feed ourselves emotionally, and it's then what we do with that, how we move with that energy.
Which is interesting because, again, something I want to explore more with you on a whole episode dedicated to it is Qigong. So I imagine that there would be particular Qigong practices that help you retain heat and some that help you release it more. Or is that over simplistic?
Qigong has many aspects. There's the yin aspect and the yang. So whenever we're talking yin and yang, we're talking cooling and warming. We're talking passive and active. So there's always going to be, Qigong has that movement aspect to it. So we're going to be moving the body and therefore moving the qi through the body. But we're also have an aspect of Qigong, the inner Qigong, where we're going to sit and sit in stillness and just allow the body to catch up, allow the body to integrate what we've done within the movement. So there's the body aspect, there's the breath aspect, and there's the mind aspect. So working with the movements helps to move energy, and movement is warming. When we're cold, what do we do in wintertime? It's like, let's jog on the spot to warm up. Let's rub whatever's cold to warm it up, because movement activates yang. And then when we just stop and in stillness, when you're sitting at the computer all day, you tend to feel more cold because there's no movement. So Qigong, in its movement and its stillness, its pauses in between the movements, it's about balance. It's always about balance. We don't want to be too much movement and not enough stillness. We don't want to have too much stillness and not enough movement. So we need to have both. And then we need that mindfulness presence. When we sit down to eat, if we're not sitting down and actually mindfully eating, our digestive system is switched off and we can't digest it. No. So this idea of mindfulness as well as movement, as well as the breath, which the breath is what activates the nervous system or calms the nervous system right down. So the best thing you can ever do before a meal is to just sit at the table and take 10 long, slow, deep belly breaths to switch off your nervous system. And when you're eating, eat.
I know. And it's something that's really quite simple. A lot of my clients will say, Sally-Anne, I know when I'm eating mindfully because I can actually taste my food. So if you're listening along and thinking, oh, mindful eating is too complicated or I don't have time for it, just ask yourself, when you're eating, can you actually taste your food? It's not the whole part of mindful eating, but it will give you an indication of how mindful you are at meal times.
And how often do people just consume their food and then look at their plate and go, oh, have I already eaten my lunch?
Yeah.
Because there was absolutely no mindfulness whatsoever. And therefore, it's not actually nourished them.
No, and I've been guilty of that as well. I don't eat mindfully 100% of the time. And it's that classic that you go to have that last mouthful of food on your plate and you realize there's nothing left. You're like, oh, where did that all go? As you just said, not very mindful. A great example of mindless eating. So thanks for sharing that, Tania. With summertime eating, is there any other things or any other aspects of summertime that we need to pay attention to with our health that may or may not be related to food?
Because summer relates to the heart energy, it's always about doing what we love, being with the people who bring us joy, who uplift us. It is that heart energy. Do I love what I'm doing? Can I do what I love? Do I love the people I'm around? Can I love the people who I have to be around? Can I see the best in them? Because there is good in everyone. Yeah. Sometimes it's harder to find.
Yeah, and I was interested because when I was reflecting again on summer being the heart energy, I was thinking very much about that emotional aspect of the heart that we talk about. But what about heart health? Is there anything that comes up in the summer, perhaps those who have a heart condition?
If somebody has a condition, it's always best to speak to a practitioner. Yeah. Because in Chinese medicine terms, we don't treat the disease, we treat the person.
Yes.
So there's often a lot more going on than just the heart.
Yes.
So we've got the five elements in Chinese medicine, which is related to the seasons, but it's also related to the organs. So when you think about the fire element, which is the heart energy, it is the liver or wood energy that feeds into that heart energy. So what's happening at that level of anger or irritability is going to impact how the heart the heart health of the heart. When you think of the heart energy, fire energy feeds down into the earth energy, that's our digestive system. Then when you think at the very bottom, we've got that kidney energy, our adrenals, and the heart and kidney axis is really important. So it's hard to sort of say to somebody, oh, you've got a heart condition, therefore you don't eat this food or don't eat that food or do this or do that. It is so dependent, because is their heart condition due to deficiency? Do they need nourishment? Or is their heart condition due to excess? Does something need to be released or dispersed, or does some level of stagnation need to be addressed? So generally speaking, we can say eat bitter foods, because bitter foods nourishes that fire energy, that heart energy. But we're treating the individual. We're always treating the individual, and we need to know what's happened for that person in order to understand how to support that person.
I love that example, Tania, because unfortunately in Western medicine, and not all practitioners are like this, we tend to focus on body parts or look at the mind separate, or mental health separately to health. And I think back over my career of 30 years, we've certainly made advancements there, understanding the impact of stress, say, on heart health. We definitely know the impact of stress on someone's blood sugar levels, especially if they have either type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. We know when there's physical stress, such as a cold or flu, or emotional stress, that is going to cause blood sugar levels to go up. So certainly taking it back to that relationship that the heart has with all aspects of the body, I think is really important, and will hopefully help our listeners understand that, yeah, it's not just about my heart, or it's not just about my cholesterol levels. It's looking at our whole health and lifestyle.
And another aspect that supports the heart is sleep. So, from a Chinese medicine perspective, when the spirit is disturbed, it's really hard to sleep. But if you're not getting an appropriate amount of sleep at the appropriate time of day or night, then the body does become more stressed. Unfortunately, many people just think of the heart as just pumps the blood around the body. So generally, when we're not sleeping well, it is often a deficiency, or an imbalance rather, perhaps more than a deficiency, in the blood of the body and in the yin of the body, because we've got yin and blood and qi and yang. So blood and yin are often supporting of each other, just like qi and yang are supporting of each other. So at nighttime, when people, particularly women in menopause, are getting all their hot flushes and they're just restless at night, and restless legs always gets worse at night, all of this activity, all of this movement is actually indicative that the yin and yang is no longer in balance.
Yes.
So often it is the yin that has become depleted, and therefore it is as if we have too much yang in the body. So rather than going ice and cold and depleting that yang, what we need to do is nourish the yin, which is the cooling, moistening, calming aspect of the body, to bring that up into balance. Or when people are, in fact, too yang, we need to look at, well, what are we doing to feed that fire? Can we stop feeding that fire, calming things down a little bit to bring it back into balance? Then when you can sleep appropriately, and often breathing will help, meditative exercises, just being centered, calming, journaling is fabulous, but nourishing the blood, nourishing the yin is all about helping us to sleep better and be more calm and calm the heart.
Yes. So can sleep be a problem for people in summer? Is there, because
yeah.
Okay.
Because of the heat and because of the active energy, people find it harder to calm down. They find it harder to settle.
Mm.
So when you find it harder to settle, especially in the evenings, we have to look at what's happening with the yin of the body, because the yin is the cooling, calming,
Yes.
moistening aspect.
Which
So
is,
am I well hydrated? Have I done some breathing exercises to calm down? Have I been drinking my peppermint tea or my white tea to cool my system down? Am I eating seasonally and appropriately so that I'm not adding to that fire and being more restless and more active?
yes. And it is really interesting because I have to admit, I have a biased opinion, I suppose, on daylight savings. I am not a fan of daylight savings. And there's certainly, from the research, we're finding that even though it's just an hour, it is disrupting people's health and well-being. And I was thinking about that wind down at night. Well, we're actually making that more difficult because we're adding an extra hour of daylight at the end of the day when the body, especially at this time of the year, where the days are naturally longer, needs more time to wind down. So I just throw that in there because I know from a lifestyle point of view, a lot of people love daylight savings because they get extra time when they get home from work. But it's an interesting one, and I know there is ongoing research looking at that impact of daylight savings. Something before we
Light has got a huge impact on the body. It affects our melatonin.
yes.
So, yes, I have no opinion either way about daylight savings, but certainly other aspects of light can contribute to our restlessness.
Mm.
So, all of our exposure to computers and phones and iPads and all of that sort of thing, that sort of light is also highly stimulating. The television, all our bright fluorescent lights, and you walk into a house, and in the evenings, in the old days, there used to be some candles, some gentle, soft lighting. Now we've got these bright, white, cool lights everywhere that, again, are highly stimulating. So, at home, if you can dim the lighting, if you can switch off your computers at a decent hour of the evening, disconnect from work and all of that sort of activity, and allowing the body to wind down and the brain to wind down and calm down will certainly help.
Yes, yes. And just to let listeners know that I have earlier episodes on sleep with Rosemary Clancy, who is a sleep psychologist. So she has shared a lot of tips along the lines of what Tania and I have been speaking about today. But one other thing that I wanted to say about sleep and how you were saying that a lack of sleep is stressful for the body. We definitely know that. We know, especially with chronic sleep deprivation, that the cortisol levels rise. And longer term sort of epidemiological studies show that less than 5.5 hours of sleep a night is risk for heart disease and type 2 diabetes. So we do understand that more as well from the Western point of view, that sleep is a foundation to our health and well-being. And
Absolutely.
I think it's been hard, especially for some of the younger generations, because they've grown up with all these gadgets and they're so easy to use. And I just know of members in my family who, not uncommon, they're still on their iPads at 1 o'clock in the morning and they don't feel like sleeping because, as you said, the brain has been trained to be stimulated by this artificial light. So it is an interesting one, and in some ways a simple thing if we can remove this artificial light and allow our body to recognize that sleep debt and go to sleep. We just feel so much better.
So, coming back to the heart again, then, it's about self-care. Self-care is an act of self-love.
Yeah.
And sometimes self-care has to be hard love.
Yes.
And it needs to be about discipline, and it needs to be
Yes.
about saying, I need that sleep. Therefore, it's time to turn off the internet or the phones or the computers or whatever at a decent hour, say 9 o'clock or something like that, so that we have that hour or so to wind down so that we can be in bed. And in Chinese medicine terms, the body clock tells us that not even just in Chinese medicine terms, even Western medicine is recognizing that the most important sleep we can get, the most restorative sleep,
Mm.
is between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m.,
Yeah.
which essentially funny enough, falls into the liver gallbladder time, that wood time, when wood feeds fire.
Yes.
So it nourishes the heart, it keeps us calm. So the ideal time, if you look at the Chinese medicine body clock, to wind down is around 9 o'clock. You start switching off laptops and computers and all that sort of thing. You start to create that routine of what they call sleep hygiene, of telling the body it is time to calm down and wind down because I'm about to go to sleep now. And you've
Yes.
got to give it time. It won't happen instantly. You can't shut the laptop and go, I'm ready for bed. You need that I don't know what to call it other than a wind down time to integrate everything, let go of the day, and just be
Yeah.
still.
And I think one of the simplest studies I ever read about sleep was people were camping and there was no artificial light. Sure, they would have had torches for safety, but they basically just removed the artificial light. And after about 2 days, like even a long weekend out in the bush camping without light, people's sleep cycles had actually been restored. So the body knows what to do. We just need to support our mind and body in a way that allows us to get that quality sleep that we need. So, yeah,
Slow down enough to listen.
yes, yeah, that's right. It's just,
Put it in.
yeah, just doing it. And as you said, I think it can be hard. But the crazy thing, going back to all these devices and what hooks us in, all that stuff that hooks us in is available 24 hours a day. So, so it's not like we have to stay up late to watch our favorite series or binge watch. And I've certainly binge watched some programs as well. But I've learned to actually start binge watching on a cold, wet day in winter after lunch, not at 7 o'clock in the night, so I can still get my sleep as well. So, yeah, I think it is just reflecting on what we are doing in our life and what is supporting us and what we can change just gradually, one thing at a time. Tania, is there anything else that you'd like to share about summer and summertime food?
No, we've talked about cooling the body down without chilling the digestive fire. Eating seasonally always helps.
Yes.
Making choices that way, lighter cooking styles, not feeding the fires, supporting our heart with the bitter flavor and with love and kindness, inner love and kindness.
Tania, thanks for sharing all of that. And I think as we work through these seasonal conversations, there's some trends that keep coming up, isn't it? It's about eating seasonally. It is about slowing down and taking notice of our mind and body and not just looking at overdoing it, but also replenishing. There's different aspects to our health, and looking from an Eastern point of view, that concept of excess or deficiency. And on the surface, you may think, as you were saying today, with excess heat, that we have too much yang, but we could actually have a yin deficiency as well. And this is why it's really important that we talk to our practitioners to help guide us through this. That's so important. Tania, do you have any resources available if people would like to find out more about summertime eating or seasonal eating?
Yeah. I have my blog, so orientalwisdom.com.au is my website, and I have various recipes and articles on my blog, but I also have a series of seasonal self-care ebooks that I've developed this year as a result of the seasonal self-care workshops that I ran. And I will be running those workshops again next year, bigger and better than ever next year. They were just small workshops this year, but they're going to be full day workshops next year on a Sunday. The dates will be coming up onto my website in the next week or two. And because they're a full day workshop on a Sunday, it's great for people to come in from Sydney or to come in from Bathurst and travel that far and spend the whole day. We're going to be looking at foods. We're going to be looking at the emotional side of things. We're going to be looking at Qigong forms to practice. We'll be doing some meditation. So we'll be looking at all aspects of self-care during those workshops. But if you want a taster, the ebooks are there.
Yes, no, that's good. And I'll make sure that the links for your website and the ebooks especially are available in this episode's notes.
And I am here in Katoomba, and I'm here in my clinic, Lemon Balm Clinic, 4 days a week, doing the one-on-ones. So using acupuncture, whole foods, herbs, talking to people about their lifestyle. So it's an opportunity to really come down to what is it that I need rather than what's the general picture.
That's right. Yeah, and it's that personalized guidance, and it is so important. Whether we choose Chinese medicine, whether we choose naturopathy, Western nutrition, whatever path we take, it's important to be able to work with your practitioner, but also in a way that empowers you to learn more about yourself and to be able to assess what we need as individuals. So, Tania, thanks again. It's been lovely to share with you today.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So, Tania, I look forward to catching up with you again soon to continue our seasonal discussions, but also I'd love to dedicate one to just Qigong.
Sounds fabulous. Thanks, Sally-Ann.
If you've been listening today and you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know and share it on your social media pages. And by subscribing, you'll make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes. You have been listening to the Eating For You podcast with Sally-Ann Pisk. If a long-term way of healthier eating is of interest to you, then make sure you subscribe to our podcast.